group that congregates in each corner of the room a piece of paper and some pens just to help them to try to collate their thoughts and navigate their discussion through the theme that I suggest for that corner.
If you're offended by an idea, the offence that's criticised is a specific.
The only thing we had an issue with was a fixer, the double dealer fixer, and we made that clear. And we didn't get the right response. That's why we had to go further. Why do you think this question comes up in Wales now, at this point?
Freedom of expression is not just for artists.
Only instances where the authors are not part of the process.
That the power, there's a lot of power in the hands of very few, and dare one critique those shows temples of power.
Taking references to the Quran.
As a complete outsider and a multilingual person, I have issues about language, but I can't change them. And then also I think, well, have I a right to?
Do we feel as though there's an adequate forum for critical dialogue? I guess the children are lacking that inspiration.
But the one thing we haven't talked about at all here is intellectual rights.
I still wouldn't stop there, right.
Well, I'm talking about journalists.
I've come across misinterpretations or misquotes.
There's work that I could make that ticks the boxes, and I would be happy making them with, but it's not what I'm...
You need to try, and I think quite a lot of detail that restricted budget compared with...
I felt that these conversations were of an entirely different texture and nature, and I hope brought out a complementary but quite different set of thoughts.
When we're talking about offence, do you have the right to offend? What is offensive? Why you should offend? Should art offend? Is there any justification for offensiveness? And on and on and on. And I'll just give you the headlines we came up with because they just about make sense, I think. You don't always get what you want. Catholicism has twittered its way out. Go fine. The BBC are scared. We don't have freedom, which led us into NATO and the fact that we're less and less free. There's enough democracy to know that democracy is bollocks. The Welsh are not an artistic nation. I didn't say it, I merely reported it, and apparently a reportage is fine. And frankly, you have no right not to be offended. The Welsh are sentimental in their art. The weather is not good for site-specific work. Then we got into intellectual rights and modern Baudelarism and things like that, which led us to our writers allowed into rehearsals. Of the very large group I was in, we thought the majority did, but we don't know if that's true across the piece. Language ultimately came down to expression and intention, and it was all to do with how you express that intention. You could say the words that some people find utterly offensive in the most loving way, and it makes sense. There is no right intrinsically in our language to cause offence. There is nothing there that does it. And finally, oh, that really was the fun thing. It says the words aren't to blame. That was us.
Hello. Yes, we were discussing cultural rights and listening. This is going to be a tricky one because I did that thing that John McGrath pointed out, which was I was supposed to be listening, and of course I was just formulating what I was going to say next in the discussion, so I might struggle with this a bit. So we started off picking up on that sort of sensation of I don't know, the idea that a career in the arts or expression in the arts is a difficult thing, and you'll never be able to sustain it in terms of education, that Chelsea pointed out very nicely in her speech. We very, very quickly then moved on to that, of course, in terms of the rights of expression, not only for us, for artists, for people in the cultural industries, but for everybody. So in terms of creating structures in education and in our professional lives, obviously for our audiences, for the general public to express themselves. freely. We then moved on to sort of various little sort of fragmentary bits. Is it the responsibility of arts and cultural institutions to teach creativity in schools? We had health and safety as a block. Some of you may have experienced that. Also, perhaps the responsibility of the individual in terms of freedom of self-expression. Again, this is maybe something quite personal, but I know that if I encounter somebody who is taking the risk, who is brave enough to express themselves freely without shame about a difficult subject, maybe expressing an uncomfortable truth, then I am liberated also as an individual to respond to that and to speak in a similar way. So in terms of taking that responsibility as an individual to make sure that we speak our truth as we see it and making that contagious. Also coming with that is perhaps a responsibility of freedom of expression. So how far can we go before maybe that kind of stymies other people's creativity or shuts them down if they don't share the same confidence that we do? Anything else? Claiming the self as an artist? We sort of finished on, is Wales a nation of ditherers? We sort of dithered around the subject a little bit. There was a couple of points raised about applications for funding and potential delays and structuring timelines and the like, but I don't think we came to any clear conclusion about that. But we had lots of fun discussing it.
We actually didn't have any answers, only questions, which is actually, this little presentation is inspired by a volcano piece. Does fear prevent freedom of expression? Is the timescale long enough with so many time-limited posts? Do we take enough risks? Do you take enough risks? Do you? Do we have enough grassroots opportunities? And what about the progression routes? Who is making the work and who is watching it? And who are they and where are they? Is it because we don't have the critical mass in Wales, both audiences and practitioners? And what about education? Who said the Norwegian education system was better for creativity? And what about resources? Do we have enough? Is that what's missing? Are you in the right place right now? Is 0.23% spend on Welsh budget arts enough? Is it too little? Is it too much? Compared to where? Is it too late to accept modernism and anything new? And what about longevity? Do you have it?
Hey, so critical dialogue. Well, our whole group had a lot of fun having a lot of little critical dialogue between themselves. About little controversies. So the ending point that we had was little controversies amongst the players is the diversion. Okay? So we find in Wales that because we're such a small place, there's a lot of people who you'll have your artistic activity or fun together and then you'll go down to Tesco and you'll bump into them. So because we've got such like a fine line between the professional and the personal, everyone's very reluctant to say what they actually think and to express themselves in this critical dialogue. We also discussed whether we felt that there was an adequate forum for critical dialogue. At the moment, there's like lots of different forums. There's nothing which is really unified, but there was a general consensus that everyone really likes social media and the use, particularly by the next generation, of social media, and perhaps how we can use the energy that people get from talking about a particular performance or activity through social media, and how we can use that and harness that to encourage more critical dialogue. Okay. There's a lot of fear and backstabbing in Wales. A quote we have here is, "I'm afraid to apply for funding because it doesn't tick the boxes." True story. Yes. We talked about a despite culture. So that thing of things happening anyway, irrespective of those boxes, which is great, and that's particularly facilitated by things like social media. So perhaps we need to have a better use of that. I've got defamatory racism equals not right to offend. Defamatory racism equals not right to offend. We also spoke about this, like, because we've got this culture of lots of people talking about, like, the little dramas that have happened or the background that happens. We've got, like, a lot of people who they're speaking out of fear, like, so they don't feel open to have that critical dialogue and to express their right to freedom of expression because they're speaking from that place of fear rather than trust and power that they can express themselves and they're in a free and respectful place in order to do that.